Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping straight into some really interesting predictions for a Premier League match coming up soon.
That's right. We've got the SmartBet AI match prediction report.
Yeah, for Aston Villa versus Newcastle United. That's April 19th, 2025 at Villa Park. And this is fresh stuff. It's running on their latest system, version 8.3.0.
And the real question for our listeners today is, what's this AI telling us? What's the likely outcome? And maybe more importantly, why? What factors are driving it?
Exactly. We want to unpack what this AI analysis is actually showing.
Give you that inside look.
Okay, so let's get straight to it. The big headline from SmartBet AI, well, it's pretty decisive.
It really is.
Aston Villa, clear favorites. They're giving them a 61.42% chance of winning.
Wow, over 60%.
Yeah. Compare that to Newcastle, just 16.98%. And a draw, sitting at 21.60%. So a real lean towards Villa there.
And what's interesting, kind of right away, is the mention of the weather.
Yes, the weather.
The report suggests wet and windy conditions are expected, and crucially, the AI thinks this might actually favor Aston Villa.
Favor Villa. Okay, that's intriguing. We'll definitely need to circle back to why that might be.
Yeah, it shows how these models are getting, quite sophisticated, factoring in things like that.
So when you see numbers like these, 61%, the first thing I think is, okay, what's feeding this AI? What data are we talking about?
Yeah, good question. It's pretty comprehensive. They're looking at, obviously, match histories, not just this season, but multi-season data, too. Gives it that long-term view.
Right. Trends over time.
Exactly. And then digging deeper, you've got expected goals, XG, and expected assists, XA.
Standard metrics now, but crucial. Tells you about chance quality, not just the final score.
Precisely. Beyond that, team and player ratings are in the mix. They use ELO, FIFA ratings, things people might know, plus their own internal SmartBet ratings.
Okay, so a mix of established and proprietary stuff.
Yep. And then the usual suspects, injury reports, got to factor those in, recent form, obviously. And, really important for a specific game like this, home versus away performance splits.
Right, Villa Park factor. Okay, so it's a lot of data points.
Right.
But it's not just like throwing numbers into a spreadsheet, is it? The report mentions some pretty advanced modeling.
Oh, definitely not. Under the hood, it's quite complex. They're using a suite of models, things like XG Boost Classifier,
Okay.
which is great for finding complex patterns. Neural networks, too. Keras Sequential, specifically mentioned. Think of those as learning systems.
Learning from the data itself.
Yeah. Plus, more traditional methods like Bayesian naive Bayes, and also ensemble methods, random forest, bagging classifiers.
Ensemble methods. What's the idea there?
Yeah.
Combining different approaches.
Exactly. It's like getting multiple opinions. Instead of relying on one model's view, you combine predictions from several different types. Often gives you a more robust, kind of well-rounded result.
Like a panel of AI experts. Sort of.
You could think of it that way, yeah. And the report mentions a meta-learner as well.
Right. The meta-learner. What's its job?
It's essentially the final decision maker. It takes the outputs from all those individual models we just mentioned, XGBoost, neural nets, etc., and learns how to best combine their predictions.
So it weighs the different model opinions, maybe.
Kind of, yeah. It figures out which models are maybe better in certain situations, leading to a more refined final prediction. It's a smart way to pool the strengths.
Okay, that makes sense. Very layered approach. Now, they also mentioned Monte Carlo simulations and Poisson goal models. What do they add?
Right. So these are more about refining probabilities and getting a handle on expected goals. Monte Carlo basically involves simulating the match thousands of times.
Like playing it out digitally.
Yeah, exactly. In this case, 10,000 times. Based on all the data and the model's understanding, it gives you a distribution of possible outcomes.
And how did those simulations stack up against the main prediction?
Interestingly, very closely aligned. The Monte Carlo results were Villa wins 61.39%, draw 21.61%, Newcastle wins 17.00%. Almost identical to the main model output.
Wow. Okay, so running the match 10,000 times points very strongly towards Villa, too. Adds confidence, doesn't it?
It certainly reinforces the main prediction.
Yeah.
And the Poisson models, that's more about predicting the number of goals.
What?
Poisson regression is a statistical tool for count data, like goals. The AI uses it to forecast the expected goals for each team.
And what did it forecast here?
The expected scoreline came out as Aston Villa, 1.70 goals to Newcastle United, 0.80 goals.
1.7 to 0.8. So again, clearly favored favoring Villa, expecting them to score more than twice as often on average.
It pretty much, yeah. It paints a picture of Villa dominance in terms of expected goal output.
Which leads nicely into the most likely actual scorelines, I guess.
It does. Based on that Poisson model and other factors, the single most probable score predicted is Aston Villa 1, Newcastle United 0.
1-0 Villa. Okay, so not expecting a goal fest necessarily. What else was high on the probability list?
Well, the report gives the top 5. After 1-0 Villa, which was at 13.95% probability,
Right.
you have Villa 2-0 Newcastle, that's 11.86%. Then 1-1 draw comes in third at 11.16%.
Okay, draw is still reasonably likely then.
Presumably, yeah. Fourth is Villa 2-1 Newcastle at 9.49%, and fifth is a 0-0 draw, 0-0 at 8.21%.
So, looking at those top 5, Villa winning features 3 times, draws twice. Still heavily weighted towards Villa avoiding defeat.
Absolutely. 4 out of the top 5 have Villa getting at least a point.
Let's dig into that home advantage thing more. The report really stresses it for Villa. Why is it so significant?
Well, multiple reasons, likely. First, just the historical data. Villa clearly performed better at Villa Park. That's undeniable.
Familiar ground, home crowd.
All of that, yeah. Maybe tactical tweaks at home, too. But the AI actually quantifies it with this rating adjustment. Their base team rating is 80.
Okay.
But at home, they get a +4 boost, takes them up to 84. That's a noticeable jump in the model's eyes.
Definitely. And how does Newcastle compare on that front? Ratings, home-away splits?
Newcastle's base rating is 75. But crucially, unlike Villa, their rating doesn't change home or away. It stays at 75.
Interesting. So the model doesn't see the same venue impact for them.
Apparently not, or at least not consistently enough in the data. And reinforcing Villa's strength, the report explicitly states they have one of the best home records in the whole division. That +4 feels earned based on performance.
Right. And what about Newcastle's away form, specifically against, the better teams?
That's another key point the AI flags. Historically, Newcastle have, struggled when traveling to face teams in the top half.
Okay.
And linking back to the weather point earlier, the analysis suggests those struggles are often worse in poor weather conditions.
So the predicted rain and wind could compound their difficulties away at a strong home side like Villa.
That seems to be the inference, yeah. It paints a picture of a potentially very tough away day for Newcastle.
Okay, that context makes the high Villa win probability seem, more understandable. Now let's talk specifics on that weather forecast. It's not just a bit of rain, is it?
No, sounds quite persistent. The forecast for the MASH window, roughly 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. that Saturday, it's talking persistent light rain, moderate winds.
How moderate?
Winds around 11 to 17 miles per hour. Temperatures quite chilly, 4 to 6 Celsius. And the chance of rain, it's super high, 91 to 100% probability. Plus high humidity around 95%.
Right. So yeah, a properly damp and blustery afternoon.
Pretty much sums it up. Proper English football weather.
Not always conducive to pretty football. How does the AI think this specific type of weather impacts the game, and why does it lean towards Villa?
Well, the thinking outlined is that these conditions could actually suit Villa's style. A wet, slick pitch can sometimes help teams that play technically on the ground. The ball moves faster.
Right. Quick passing, intricate moves might be easier if the surface is slick.
Potentially, yeah. And that's generally seen as Villa's approach, technical, ground-based. Also, in bad weather, defensive solidity is maybe even more important. Fewer mistakes allowed. The AI likely rates Villa's defense as more reliable in those conditions.
Okay, that makes sense. Slippery ball, difficult conditions.
Yeah.
Mistakes get punished. What about for Newcastle? How might it hinder them?
The main point raised is the wind potentially disrupting aerial play. Crosses, long balls, if Newcastle rely on those.
Which many teams do, especially away from home sometimes.
Exactly. The wind gusts, 11-17 mile barak, can make judging the flight of the ball much harder. It could make crosses less accurate, long clearances less effective, harder to win headers.
So if Newcastle's plan involves, say, getting it wide and whipping balls in, the wind could really mess with that.
That seems to be the AI's assessment, yes. It could limit their attacking options or make them less effective.
Fascinating how something like wind speed gets factored in. Okay, let's shift focus slightly. What's the betting market saying? How do the odds compare?
Always a useful check, isn't it? So right now, the odds for a Villa win are around 2.30.
Which implies what probability?
About 43.48% implied probability. The draw is about 3.60, so 27.78% implied chance. And Newcastle to win is around 2.80, meaning 35.71% implied probability.
Okay, hold on. The market has Villa favorite, yes, but at 43.48%, whereas the AI is way up at 61.42%.
That's the key discrepancy, yeah. A really significant gap.
Almost 18% difference.
Exactly. The report flags this directly, suggesting the market might be, well, undervaluing Villa's chances according to the AI's analysis.
So for anyone looking at betting, that gap,
Mm-hmm.
that's potentially where the value might lie, according to this model.
That's the suggestion, yes. If you trust the AI's deeper analysis, the current odds on Villa look potentially generous.
Interesting. And what about the Newcastle odds? The market implies about 36%. The AI has them down at 17%.
Yeah, the report notes the market aligns a bit better there, or at least both see Newcastle as the clear underdog. The market gives them maybe a slightly better fighting chance than the AI does, but they're both pointing in the same direction, Newcastle unlikely winners.
Right, so the big story is the difference on the Villa price. Okay, finally then, what about the tactical side? How does the AI see the game actually playing out on the pitch?
The expectation is that Villa will probably try to control possession, especially early on, press high, make use of that home advantage.
Makes sense given their record and the AI favoring them.
Yeah, and given the weather potentially suiting their ground game, put Newcastle under pressure from the start.
And how might Newcastle cope with that? Especially if, as suggested, the weather hinders long balls or clearances.
Well, the report implies they might struggle to build sustained attacks or create really clear chances. If they're forced into hurried, perhaps wind-affected clearances, it's hard to get a foothold in the game, isn't it?
Yeah, you end up just defending constantly.
Potentially. It could disrupt their rhythm and make it difficult to get quality possession high up the pitch.
So the weather, again, potentially forcing Newcastle into less favorable patterns of play. What else does the AI highlight as potentially decisive?
Given everything the conditions, maybe a tight game, it stresses the importance of set pieces.
Corners, free kicks.
Exactly. And also winning those second balls, those midfield scraps after clearances or tackles. In games where flowing moves are difficult, those situations become huge.
Makes sense. A moment of quality from a set piece or dominating the loose balls could easily decide it if open play is messy.
That's likely the thinking, yeah. Capitalizing on those moments could be key.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this all up for the listener. The main takeaway from this SmartBet AI deep dive. It's a strong prediction for an Aston Villa win against Newcastle.
Definitely. That 61.42% probability is a headline number.
And crucially, that's significantly higher than what the betting markets are suggesting right now. Potential value there, according to the model.
Yeah, the AI sees Villa's chances as much better than the odds imply.
And this prediction is built on a whole load of data history, ratings, XG, home advantage.
And factoring in that wet and windy weather forecast, which the AI thinks will likely help Villa's technical style and possibly disrupt Newcastle.
Expected scoreline around 1.7 goals to 0.8 for Villa, most likely single score being 1-0 Villa.
That's the core of it, a really detailed, data-driven case for a home win.
It really is fascinating seeing how much detail goes into these predictions now. It offers a very analytical angle on the game.
Absolutely. It gives you a different lens to view the potential patterns and outcomes.
It does. And it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? How much can these sophisticated analytics really predict in a sport like football, which thrives on upsets and, the unpredictable?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Can data truly model the beautiful chaos of the game?
Or will there always be that human element, that moment of magic or madness that defies the numbers? Something to ponder, definitely. While the AI gives us a really compelling narrative here.
The actual story gets written on the pitch.
Exactly. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.